Hello, good afternoon, everybody. What we're having a look at in today's short video is bias. Bias in texts that we're reading. This is mainly geared towards the level 2 reading exam. So what we're going to start with is explaining what is bias. What is it? What does it mean to be biased? Basically, it's when we look at a subject or a topic with one perspective, not considering other options. So one-sided view. It means that when we're giving our opinion of a subject, it's often unbalanced and includes a lot of opinion. The most common place that we see this is in things like advertisements for products, where they will tell you how amazing a product is, how good it is. They will tell you about different aspects that make this product the best. They will not compare it to their competitors. They will not consider other options. They just show you what they want you to see, and they show it in a positive light. So if bias is just showing you one side of the equation, it stands to reason that balance is the opposite. So when we're reading a text, we need to consider, when I'm reading this, am I just getting one viewpoint, or is it a balanced record of that subject? So is this in your exams? I'm afraid so. The last section of the reading exam is worth 7 marks and only includes 2 questions. So it stands to reason that those questions are going to be worth a few more marks. The last question on the exam is worth either 3 or 4 marks, depending on the paper that you're sitting. Now, considering you only need 16 marks in order to pass the exam, this is a really good place to be trying to build those extra marks. Because it does sit right at the very end of the exam, it does mean that, unfortunately, if you are struggling with time, it can mean that if you miss this question, you are missing out on a big chunk of the marks. Therefore, what I would always recommend to do is, when you're doing the exam, there is a little flag symbol that you can use. So when you get to a question, if you do get stuck or have problems, you can flag it up and it will remind you to go back to those questions afterwards. It's like a little bookmark. But that means you have a chance to complete as many questions as you can before coming back to any. So if you do get stuck on a question, I'm afraid time is not on your side. Don't sit there looking at it and, scratching your head trying to work it out. Move on. Because the chances are that by the time you come back, you can come back to it and you'll have like a fresh point of view on it. So how do you answer the question in the exam? It will usually have a document that you read in section 1 and 4 or 5 questions. A document on the same subject, but a different type of document, maybe a different viewpoint, in the second section, and some questions. And then a third document with questions, and then this is the section here. It will ask you to rate which you think is the most and the least biased. So you need to be thinking about what is the purpose of the documents. For example, if you see something that is openly an advertisement for a product, the chances are it's going to be a biased text. If on the other side of things, you're looking at a forum or some kind of place where it shows you multiple people's opinions, it's going to be a lot more balanced, and therefore that may be the least biased. So by this stage, you will have already read all 3 documents. You don't have to read them all from scratch. You should have a good idea by now of which falls into what category, but spend a moment reading through, checking, because you are going to be expected to explain how you've come to that decision. So if this is out of 4 marks, you can achieve 1 mark for just putting them in the correct order of most to least biased. If you then are able to give an example of how you have come to this decision, you can get more marks. If you can do that for all 3 documents and say, this is the most because of I've seen this, this is in the middle because, and then show your evidence, this is the least biased and show your evidence for that, you can score more and more marks. So where will I find bias in real life? Advertisements? Yes. Unfortunately, the news, especially if you are getting your news from any place that involves news agencies that have a political or financial gain from looking at an event from a particular perspective, any opinion piece or they used to be known as editorials, where somebody would come on and say, this is my opinion. And it's simply an article expressing someone's opinion. So if you have a think, does this article show any bias? Bias is when the writer is one-sided. So, I mean, the example I've put here, if you ask an Arsenal fan, what's the best football club? They're going to say Arsenal, because that's their personal favourite. Now, if we read this next document, we need to think, just a second, here we go. This is an article that was written by PETA, the People's Ethical Treatment of Animals. Just from their name, we know that their aim, their goal as a company, as a non-profit, is to make animal lives better. That is their agenda. That is their reason for existence. Now, the article, if we actually read through it, we will see whether or not they have clear or hidden bias. Now, in this case, it says, the article is entitled Exotic Animals as Pets. Ignorance breeds misery. In the hands of unprepared or incompetent caretakers, many exotic animals die or are abandoned. Okay, so already we know from the first sentence their perspective towards people owning these animals is negative. The head of the Environmental Crime Investigation Unit in the Western Cape, South Africa, estimates that 90% of exported reptiles die within a year. Okay, now, for the sake of this video, I'm not going to read the entire piece of text. Hopefully it's big enough on the screen, so if you need to, you can pause and read through it. It basically comes up with, I think, 5 or 6 different examples of how animals can be mistreated or neglected when unprepared owners look after them. Now, it even includes in this very last paragraph, it says what you can do. So it's using direct address here. So never buy exotic animals from dealers or pet shops, and support legislation that would make owning exotic animals illegal and prohibit the interstate sale of exotic animals. So right at the very end, the final message, it opens negatively. It ends still speaking negatively, but giving the reader almost instructions of what they can do to help. Now, they do use language features throughout this as well. For example, it does mention that animal authorities confiscated a crippled cougar cub from Buffalo. Now, this is a wonderful example of how the writer has used alliteration. So they've confiscated a crippled cougar cub. Brilliant. So I would say this is a biased article where the writer has used alliteration in order to put across their negative viewpoint of exotic animal ownership. And I would potentially put that quote in there as well. Then I would move on to the next article, see if I can find a language feature, pull it out, and then say, right, this article is less biased because it has points of view from multiple people. And the only person who, and then I would find a language feature and say, okay, so this is a positive and this is a negative, showing that it's more balanced. So you basically go through the texts, see what language features you can find, see whether or not they have a clear positive or negative outlook on the text, see if they consider other points of view, and then basically write as much detail as you can. The whole question should take you in the region of about 8 minutes to complete. So, bias in text. That particular one we've looked at, yes, very definitely biased. Their whole reason for being is to look after animals. So in this case, what they've done is they have given an article saying pet ownership is bad, you should listen to us, and you should not own these animals. Fine. They are not looking at it from any other perspectives. They are biased. If any of you would like any past papers to have a look through, to have a go at some of these questions yourselves, I am more than happy to send them through. Please just get in touch by email. And as always, if you have any problems or questions, you should know how to get hold of me. Other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope I've clarified at least a little bit how to identify bias in a text. Thank you very much.